Hello, you are with Dr. Sushma Singh. Today we are going to start Unit 13, Ecology, Environment and Development. This unit introduces us with the interrelationship between ecology, environment and development. It begins with a discussion on the concepts and their development. It discusses the consequences of development on ecology and environment. The issue of degradation of environment, social pollution and destruction of forests are also discussed here. The major concerns of ecological movement have also been discussed here. The last section of this unit deals with a few development projects that have raised alarm among the environmentalists all over the globe. Now let us start the first topic, ecology and sustainable development. The term sustainable development gained the wide international currency in recent years with the growth of ecological understanding at local, national and international levels, not only among the communities and movements but also among nation states and governments. Ensuring environmental sustainability, the seventh Millennium Development Goal requires achieving sustainable development pattern and preserving the productive capacity of rural ecosystems for future generations. Till the beginning of 1980s, in many countries of the world, ecology was not integrated as an essential element of development planning, and therefore it was not seriously considered as a major issue. The economic expansion in the last century and a half had alarming consequences for the global environment. Depletion of ozone layer, air pollution, loss of forests and biodiversity, extinction of plants and animal species, loss of marine lives, soil and water pollution have occurred at an alarming rate. On realizing the importance of environmental variations, problems created by them, and their impact on human settlement, quality of life, developmental problems, and changes in fertility, mortality, and morbidity, the concept of ecology acquired prominence during the 1980s. It brought forth the realization that the ecosystem had to be protected for the betterment of life at general. The recent period in human history contrasts with the previous in the strikingly high rates of resource utilization. Even expanding and intensifying industrial and agricultural production has generated increasing demands on the world's total stock and flow of resources. Development interventions aimed at commercialization of natural resources involve a major shift in the manner in which rights to resources are perceived and exercised. The resource demand of development has led to the narrowing of the natural resources base for the survival of the economically poor and powerless, either by direct transfer of resources away from their basic needs or by destruction of essential ecological process that ensures renewability of the life supporting natural resources. For development to be sustainable, it must take into account the social, cultural, ecological, as well as the economic factors of the living and non-living resource base, and the long-term as well as short-term advantages and disadvantages. Now let us discuss sustainable development. The Brundtland Commission in its report defined sustainable development as the development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. It contains within it two key concepts. The concept of need, in particular, is the essential needs of the world's poor, to which overriding priorities should be given, and the ideas of limitations imposed by the state of technology and social organization on the environment ability to meet present and future needs. Thus, the goals of economic and social development must be defined in terms of sustainability in all countries, developed and developing, market oriented or centrally planned. Interpretation will vary but must share certain general features and must flow from a consensus on the basic concept of sustainable development and on a broad strategic framework for achieving it. Development involves a progressive transformation of economy and society. A development path that is sustainable in a physical sense could theoretically be pursued even in a rigid social and political setting. But the physical sustainability cannot be secured unless development policies pay attention to such consideration as changes in access to resources and in the distribution of costs and benefits. Now let us move to the next point, colonial domination over national resources. For centuries, vital natural resources like land, water and forest had been controlled and used collectively by village communities, thus ensuring a sustainable use of these renewable resources. The first radical change in resource control and the emergence of major conflict over natural resources induced by non-local factor was associated with the colonial domination of this part of the world. Colonial domination systematically transformed the common vital resources into commodities for generating profit and growth of revenues. The first industrial revolution was to a large extent supported by this transformation of commons into commodities, which permitted European industries access to the resources of South Africa. The transformation of commons into commodities has two implications. First, it deprives the politically weaker groups of their right to survival, which they had through access to commons. Second, it robs from the nature its right to self-renewal and sustainability by eliminating the social constraints on resources use that are the basis of common property management. With the collapse of the international colonial structure and establishment of sovereign countries in the region, this international conflict over natural resources was expected to be reduced and replaced by resource policies guided by comprehensive national interests. However, resource use policies continue along the colonial pattern, and in the recent past, a second drastic change in resource use has been initiated to meet the international requirements and the demands of the elites in the third world, leading to yet another acute conflict among the diverse interests. The most seriously threatened interest in this conflict appears to be that the politically weak and socially disorganized group whose resource requirements are minimal and whose survival is primarily dependent directly on the products of nature outside the market system. Recent changes in resource utilization have almost wholly bypassed the survival needs of these groups. These changes are primarily guided by the requirements of the countries of the North and of the elites of the South. Now let us move to the next point, expansion of global market fairs. Development as an ideological allows the indirect entry of global market domination. It creates the need for international aid and foreign debt, which provide the capital for such development projects that commercializes or privatizes resources. Local resources thus increasingly move out of control of local communities and even national governments into the hands of international financial institutions. Forestry projects, dam projects, and fisheries projects tie the resources of the remotest village to the international investment and aid. Multilateral development agencies such as World Bank give loan for environmentally sensitive areas like agriculture, forestry, and irrigation, and through these loans give primacy to the market economy and render nature's economy and the survival economy as indispensable. The condition for the loan determine the mode of utilization of natural resources. The rates of the return on investment in irrigation projects create an imperative for cash crop cultivation and wastage of water, even though it leaves the land waterlogged or an arid desert. Through internationally financed development projects, conflicts over natural resources pit tribal and peasant communities against the international institutions, with the state acting as an agent of dispossession of local communities. To clear the way for global plans and ideologies of development, integration with the global market economy thus marginalizes the concern for nature's economy and the survival economy. The massive involvement of international finance in the economic development of third world countries changes the natural resource management strategy in drastic ways. Rapid growth of export oriented resource utilization has led countries to the debt trap, with its concomitant ecological degradation. Here we want to close this lecture. Thanks for patientful listening.